That's it. So guys, we'll be dealing with the cloud computing for the next 4 days, 5 days, right? So let's get first introduction to cloud. So first of all, we need to understand that why we need to learn cloud computing. What is actually cloud computing? What are the process includes in this term? And we'll be going with today. We'll be going with why cloud computing. What is cloud computing? Types of cloud computing. We'll go with the further because it's a very vast topic and with limited days. So we'll go with deep. Okay, fine. So first we need to understand why cloud. Now in order to host a website, you have to buy a stack of servers, right? And we all know that servers are very costly. So that means we can ended up with paying a lot of money. When you need to, or you can say, let's consider a very good example of suppose you are a company or you own a company actually. Now you need to launch a website for your company. Okay, now you need to develop a website which will be requiring servers, and that servers you have to buy it in a stack, which will be very costly. So the next issue is the traffic. Now what is that traffic? Now every time the traffic on your website could not be a constant one, right? Suppose in first day you are having a traffic of 200 to 300 people, and the other day only 5 to 10 people, and this is actually the traffic which is not constant any day. For any website, traffic is neither constant anytime. Now we all know that if we are hosting a traffic or we are hosting a website, we are dealing with the traffic every day, which is not constant throughout the days. And the other thing was monitoring and maintaining servers. So we have three issues in our daily life when we host with a website problems. That is server problem, second is your traffic problem, and third is your maintaining and monitoring server status, right? So we have some disadvantages. If we consider cost, then in the first problem you consider the server one, you again get a cost, you have to spend more money there to buy some stack of servers, which will be really expensive. Next, your traffic is not always constant on your website, and again you are paying for that all time, because in some days it can happen that your traffic is not good, since for that too also you are going to pay money. That is again a prime factor for expensive, right? So it's all that something take about expense. So we we need to reduce our cost. Actually when we are doing cloud computing, we actually reduce our daily life costings, right? And we basically when we go with dealing with the cloud computing, we are actually having a cost reduction term, if you can specify something. So either you have to do a multitask, or you can take some manager, you can manage a team for the third problem, which was our, let me go to the slides and we'll discuss slowly. Okay, this is okay, we'll discuss this slowly. So as I saw, we have three problems. That is one of the website problem servers, second is of your traffic, and third was of your monitoring and maintaining servers. Now for server one, what you can do is you can give you a lot of money and you can take servers. That's easy, fine. For the traffic problem, again you are expensing your money. And the third problem is nothing but the monitoring and maintaining servers. Suppose you think you have a problem or you have a condition that your traffic or your website has got suddenly a lot of traffic. That is, you have launched a new product on your website, and many of the users are ready to buy it. And suddenly overnight you got a lot of traffic on your website, right? So how to manage them? How to manage if you have taken a server of 2 TB, or you can say as 2 petabytes, right? Petabytes you have taken, and you got a traffic more than of 2 petabytes. So what you will do? Now that case your server will crash down or it will go down, right? We see in different websites that this server has been down. That is nothing but the same issue. So on that time, what we can do? That is, we can make a team, or you can say make a monitoring team. Will pay them, and again our money investment there. Again we get a cost reduction. We need to cost reduction there, right? So either you have to do multitasking, right, or you have to hire more people to focus on those issues. That's again ended up with paying more money. As I discussed that a traffic on a website is never constant, and since it varies, you don't know about its patterns. What will be the next output? How many people are going to become in the next 3, 4, 4, 5 days? You can predict, but not exactly the values. Nowadays the data generates is huge, and that is the reason why cloud comes in picture. We know that everything we see has gone online, like you go and shop online, you listen music online, you do every day. Everything we do is basically, we require whatever we require, we do everything online. That means we have a lot of data that is being generated these days, and this is a digital data, so the things are moving online, so the amount of the data is becoming huge day by day. All right. And when you have such a huge data, you actually need a space, right? When you have a huge data, suppose you are buying a mobile phone, right, and you are taking it from 32 GB or 64 GB. Some might be taking of 128 GB, 256. Today we have such mobile phones in our environment, right? So when you have such a huge data, you actually need a space where you can go and access and store these data. So manually, when you are having a limited storage, actually when you buy these storage, you have limited storage. That okay, I have buy 5 TB, or I have a 10 TB hard disk, and so on, right? So what is cloud basically? So now think of as the huge space that is available online for your users. Nothing but a space available on the internet for your usage. That is basically a cloud exactly is. You can say it as a collection of data centers, online collection of data centers, right? So what is cloud, if someone asked? It's very simple terms, that it is a collection, or it is a collection of online data centers. That's it. Very good. So what was the problem we had cloud computing solve? Now, okay. So let's say a man, which is this, you consider this PPT, right? So a man is the owner of his business, or you can say is the manager of his business, and he actually wants to set up a IT infrastructure company. So he called Paul. He called this Paul. Now Paul is an IT educated person in his company, and this manager consulted him that how to go and set up an IT infrastructure company. Now, Paul is a kind of guy who keeps himself updated about what's happening in the IT industry, and he frequently goes through learning about the recent technology. So without nursing and bit, Paul suggested, without wasting any time, Paul suggested that why not to take the IT infrastructure into the cloud. But his manager was not sure about what is cloud, and more than trying to understand what is cloud, he was very curious to see the benefits of cloud. Hey, what actually you will be also eager to. What is cloud? It doesn't matter. What are the benefits of cloud? That is everything we do for the benefits. For the benefits of cloud or having a DC locality, right? So Paul started to explain the very same thing I am going to explain to you right now. Okay. Now let's start with the expenditure of the billing model. Now, what is expenditure of the billing model? We'll start. He asked, on-premise, we are having an on-premise, which is nothing but a collection of data centers manually you are doing, and this is something cloud. Let's move on. So we will be comparing the on-premise versus the cloud computing. We'll discuss everything, right? So with the cloud, the billing model is pay as you go type. It's nothing but the more you use, the more you pay. The less you use, you pay less. That's it. You only pay for the amount you are using. What happens in on-premise is nothing. In on-premise, you buy a lot of space at a time, irrespective of your usage. Suppose you buy a phone, right? You buy a phone of let's say 32 GB, but you are using only 5 GB from 32 GB. So the rest of your 17 GB and this GB hasn't used, right? That is worth waste. So you are unknowingly paying again for 17 GB or 16 GB extras, right? So in cloud, what happens? In cloud, you only pay for the data, you only pay for the space you are using, right? The only space you require, you pay only for the limited space. That's all. So with the cloud, the billing model is pay as you go type, right? Meaning we use less and pay less, and we use more and again we pay less as we pay less per unit. Per unit charge we pay less. We'll discuss. On the other hand, when you can see on the on-premise, this one, we can't expect that we pay everything upfront, and there is an additional operating cost, and it never let as in dynamically scale. That's all. So in an on-premises, a lot of space is required for setting the servers, actually. So a lot of space has been required for setting the servers there. In the cloud, not such space is required for any organization, right? They have a lot of space there. In the on-premise, we also need a dedicated team to manage the hardware and software manually, because it's basically a physically work. So we need to give employees a dedicated hardware and software works and so on. In cloud, no such dedicated team is needed for most of the services. They all get managed by the providers, and even if we want to manage, the server or the provider actually gives you the options to manage it through the console, which is a lot simpler than managing directly from the device. Very simple. So in on premises, we need to adjust, or we need to admit the fact that their security is very poor in this. However, the security can be high, but not very high as compared to the cloud. We need to admit it that the security is poor as compared to the cloud due to the cost, right? Due to the cost involvement in the producing of the hardware, and also the software to promote the security. In the cloud, the security standards are high due to the investment the providers have done to secure the data, because in the cloud they don't have to make a physical model there, they don't have to make a collection. Everything they do is online. That is, in online we have a huge space, and any time when you want to increase your space, you pay for that space, and you use it for a limited time. Like you have seen in someone, if you have been using Google Drive. So what do actually Google Drive give you a free space of 15 GB, right? If you have a domain ID, it gives a space of 30 GB, right? So now what if our space fills? 15 GB has been filled. What if it gives you an option to go and buy storage from its website, right? So when you go to buy the storage, you see an options of 1 TB, 100 GB, and like 2 TB, and that is for per month, right? Your per month or for particular days. So basically you go there and you buy that storage, right? That like I have bought 100 GB, right? So 100 GB I have bought. So that is for a particular time, right there. I bought 100 GB for, or you can say is for 1 month. That's so for 1 month I am renting a space from Google for 100 GB. That's all. Fine. So for whatever time I am using, I am paying for that space. Now instead, if I go there, if I go in a shop and I come with a 100 GB pen drive or hard disk, something like that, whatever I have to pay. If you go and buy a pen drive of almost around 128 GB, it costs you 1000, right? Almost 1000, it costs you 1000, fine. But in the cloud computing, it is something 10, or you can say is 90% less. In the cloud, where increasing 100 GB of your space, when you want to make your drive of 100 GB, you will have to pay comparatively around 130 to 150 rupees. That is the difference between an on-premise and a cloud computing. Is this clear, guys? Space, any queries?
No, sir.
Fine.
Understood.
Okay. So there is a very huge difference between the space and the cost too. So you pay for the time you use and for the space you are using. So in cloud is there are many advantages right there. So in the cloud, security standards are very high due to the investments actually. The providers, because the providers actually give you a secure space and a data to meet your compliance. In the on-premise, there would be less focus on the data recovery. Once your data has been lost, there is no option for data recovery. Maybe there can be, you can recover data manually, or someone, many you can say as many much educated person can come and recover. It might get recovered, but not always. So in on-premise, there will be a very less focus on the data recovery, and we kind of settle for less. And it comes with the when it comes for the data recovery in cloud, and it is very effective, because in cloud you can basically go and get your data very easily, right? And in on-premise, when you come to recover your data, it will give you a very high cost. But whereas when compared with the cloud computing, you get no cost there. It's the data recovery in cloud computing is very free of cost, right? You go and delete anything from your pen drive, right? You go and delete it, and it's get deleted right from there. It gets deleted. Now, how to restore it? It got deleted. It's very difficult to get. Okay, you have it's maybe in your recycle bin, or if so that your recycle bin automatically deletes, so you'll never get your data there. Compare with it, it's cloud computing of the Google Cloud, Google Drive, I can say. So delete anything in your Google Drive, it gets in your trash first. So until and unless you go and delete it from your trash, it never get automatically deleted. However, it get deleted by after a period of time, but that is also get recovered. If you want it your data, it also get recovered. That's all. They display a message that you will not be getting recovered this all, but you get recovered there. So the on-premise environment lacks the flexibility needed today. If I need to, you can say, restructure the IT new age business like the Paul's manager was trying to do. So on-premise is not so friendly for such charges, right, or changes, you can say. But in the cloud, I can easily undo our tear down and make an environment there. I can easily migrate to a new environment and tear down the old environments in few button clicks only. That is next. Okay. So lack of flexibility. Okay, no automatic updates there. Very less collaboration. Data cannot be accessed computably. Remotely. It's take longer implementation time. Instead of you say that I have these data, I need to store in into this factors. It will take a very long time, right? Because manually doing these tasks actually need more people, more teams, and that will take time. In case of cloud computing, the system automatically generates everything. That's something very vast done. So cloud computing is basically the ability to deliver on-demand computing service over the internet and to pay on a pay-as-you-go basis. That's all. Now you might think, well, what does it mean? Let me explain you what is this pay-on-you-go. So with cloud, rather than managing files on a local storage, cloud computing made it possible to say you can say save them over the internet and across them for the internet. So can anyone can use it. But when I talk for anyone can use it, there are again three terms we'll discuss further. So if I am a mobile person moving from one place to another, right? If I want to access my data, so I need to carry my pen drive everywhere, right? Or my hard disk everywhere. What if I got lost my drive? If I lost my drive, what if there now? Why maybe in you can say I will search for the where is my drive and how can I get my data if I haven't created a backup of it and it's lost my. That's in case of cloud computing. If I'm a mobile person, I'm moving from one place to another and so on. I can easily go and sign in into my account and can access my data from there. There's no condition of losing your data and for all those. The security is very high, right? In case of manually hard disk, no security is there, right? You need to secure yourself. But in the cloud computing, the server, the company's cloud, whatever you are using, they actually protect your clouds. They actually protect your data there. So that was a task, that was a point actually, that security is much high in cloud computing over the on-premise options. Now if I want to access somebody else, now if I want to access somebody else data, that is if I want to access, suppose this PDF you will be getting in your drive, right? So now if you want to access, I should give you the access to access this PDFs, right? So how can I give? We have the permissions. So there in cloud computing, we have permissions actually. We can give permissions to anyone or some selected ones to go and access our data, right? But what happens in a on-premise, when you give access to someone, you are giving complete access to all of the folders or the complete access to the hard drive actually. When you go and give a data or you give someone and say that go and take this folder from this hard disk, so do you think that he will take only that folder? Why he will not search for what you all are having in your pen drive? He will definitely will search for what you have in your pen drive, and he can easily access all the data from there, right? You can get a password on your folders, and that's a different situation. But he can take easily, right? But in cloud computing, what happens? You can easily share from a particular file. You could just share a link to your friends, anyone you want to share it. You just share a very particular file, and only that particular file will be visible to the person, and they can access it. Nothing from that more than they can access. There's nothing more than that. So we have some type of clouds available there. So and now let's move to the further and talk about the understanding of the types of cloud computing. We can categorize. Okay, so cloud computing we saw what is this, and okay, taking off the storage device as compared over the internet. Right. So for the types of cloud computing, now we can categorize the different type of cloud computing based on two wide categories, one being the deployment model on your left hand side and one being the service model on your right hand side. So see guys, basically what your IBM examination would be, it's a totally theory based examination, total, right? We'll be doing some practicals in the end, last after in the second last day or the last day, and till then we will be reading just the theories, because your examination also contain for the theory parts, and we'll see the videos and we'll do some of the small projects. We'll give you the projects and you have to do. Let's talk about the deployment model first. So deployment model is categorized into three types. The first is your public, and then private, and then the hybrid type. What you can see: private cloud, hybrid cloud, and public cloud. It would be very easy for me to explain you, and also it will be very easy for you to understand if I walk you through the example. So consider the different type of vehicles we use to commute from one place to another. For example, if I want to travel, I can pick a bus which is accessible to anyone, right? I get in and I pay for the seat I occupy, and I pay for the time I will be traveling in, right? You go in a bus and you pay for the time and for the seat you are occupying. Right? It can be a double decker bus, or you are occupying the upper seat, lower seat, or window seat, anyone like in general, right? Okay. So you pay for the seat as well as you pay for the time you are traveling there. That is your cost of the seat, or the cost of your ticket actually. And I'm done. That is very less cost, actually, a very less cost. So a similar kind of thing happens in public cloud. I pay only for the resource I use, and I pay for how long I use it. If I use less, I pay less. If I use more, I pay more for that period actually, right? On the other hand, the private cloud is like buying your own car, using it for the computing purpose. Here I pay a huge amount upfront, and it is all owned only by me, right? That private one is already all owned by yourself too. So I don't pay for it and it like LD fashion, but completely upfront. The cost is very huge here. When you talk about the public, sorry, private, the cost is very huge because it's owned by a single person, right? It's a private cloud there. So thirdly, if I go to thirdly, if I want to the you can say as the best and the both best of both types, you can say best of public cloud as well as the private cloud. Now for the taxi, consider the image of the taxi. The third criteria, which is hybrid cloud. Now if I want the best of both the public as well as the private, that is if I want the both types, the comfort of my own car, and still I don't want to pay the upfront, that is the much charges, and otherwise only to pay for the time that I use the service, and I can rent a car. That is, similarly, I can have it in an hybrid environment. Meaning, if I have already had a DC and integrate it with the cloud and can use both the DCs, and that would become an hybrid environment. Nothing but you go and hire a car, or you can go and rent a car. That is nothing. You get a very good comfort also there, and it's a public one also, right? All right. So any problem there? That was good, right? So we come with the three parts of, yeah, that is hybrid, right? So when you go and rent a private taxi, isn't it simple there, guys? Any problem till now? Check. No, sir. No.
No,
Everyone.
sir.
Fine. Okay. Let's move it. So let's summarize the three types of the cloud based on the deployment models, right? So we have read public, we have seen how public works, how private works, and hybrid works. So let's summarize the type of the cloud based on the deployment models. And we know that about what the public cloud is. The public cloud is basically a cloud infrastructure that's made available to the general public over the internet, and it is owned by the cloud provider only. Okay, when you go and use public cloud, it is owned by the cloud provider only. Some of the major players of the cloud
Sir, how in hybrid, how my data will be accessible to others?
in hybrid, yeah,
How my data will be accessible to others?
because in hybrid what does, a very common example of hybrid you can take it as for NASA's, right? NASA use a hybrid cloud. It keeps its private cloud for its company and shares a lot of information on the public cloud. In hybrid cloud you have two options, like what you want to keep it as public, or what you want to keep it as a private. Private is nothing but shared with the people whatever you want, or you can keep it private that no one can access it, like a Google Drive. In Google Drive is a hybrid cloud. Actually, it's not about all the public cloud. You have options there, right? You need to keep it public, or you want to share it with someone, you have options there. So that is like how you share with public or with some limited people there, or you can say with you want to keep it private. That is the basic difference. Understand? Let me check. Yes, Muskan was having. Okay, fine. Right. So public cloud is a cloud infrastructure that made available to the general public over the internet, and it is owned by the cloud provider only. Some of the major players of the cloud are, let me say here, these are Oz. We can see as Amazon Web Services. We will be discussing day after tomorrow for the Oz, or maybe shayad tomorrow. Okay, this has gone from front. No, fine. So Oz is there, Amazon Web Service, Microsoft Azure, IBM's Blue Cloud, Sun Cloud, and so on. There we have various options. Now in private cloud, now this is exactly the cloud infrastructure which is exclusively operated by a single organization on it. It can be managed by organizations or a third party and may exist on premises or off premises, doesn't matter what you take it as actually. But the point here is this is exclusively operated for a single organization, and some company provided us that, and again Amazon Web Services and VMware, you can say, right? And hybrid cloud is the best of both the public and the private cloud. The public cloud and the private cloud there. For example, the federal agencies, actually the federal agencies, they opt for the storing and deploying personal and the public cloud to share the non-sensitive data with the general public, right? So let's talk about all the different clouds based on the service model. If we need to categorize them broadly, we can categorize them too. So public cloud, that was cloud service model, has been categorized in IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS. Generally, it is called as PaaS, and SaaS, right? So what is IaaS? IaaS is basically infrastructure as a service. Infrastructure as a service there. What is www. So on, right there. PaaS, that is PaaS, is nothing but platform as a service. In SaaS is basically the software as a service. They are generally referred as IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS. So now at this moment you would like to be thinking of this guy, right? What are these as, PaaS, SaaS, right? So let me explain. If all that you want is nothing, just a VM, virtual machine, that is nothing but a virtual machine. What is virtual machine actually? Virtual machine is nothing but you make a more machine, an extra machine in itself your machine. Like if I want to run, like I am having Mac, I want to run Linux in it, or I want to run Windows in it, I can run it through cloud computing. It's very simple. That is a virtual machine. In your machine, you are creating another operating system there, right? That is a virtual machine. The ethical hackers do like that, right? When you go and learn for anyone from the background in ethical hacking, anyone who have attended the workshops of ethical hacking, okay. So if anyone had, he or she might know what is virtual machine and how it works on. So if you only want a virtual machine and you have all the expertise to install the softwares on the top of the IT and then make it work, go for the IaaS. That's it, right? If you only have a platform for an interface to program or an interface to upload a program and make it run then public, you go for the PaaS. Or if all that you want is a finished product has in a cloud and be able to access it through the internet, then you must go with the SaaS. Here you go for a username and a password for an application, and you can begin to customize the application based on your needs. All right, any queries?
No, sir.
Fine. So this was the major difference between an IaaS, PaaS and SaaS. Alright, let's talk about more in detail. So IaaS gives basic computing informations or infrastructures. It is based on a pay on what you use model, and some of the cloud producers are now okay. So some of the cloud producers here also are Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud, GoGrid there, Oz and so on. Right? 1 second. Okay. Let me fix my network. 1 second, hold on. Okay. So we discussed what are apps, products and services. It's a cloud service that provide basic computing infrastructure services which are available on pay for what you use model. That's it. Used basically by the IT administrators. Basically IT administrators use it. These are very big players are Oz and Google, and IT admins actually use this all, right? So moving ahead, what is now PaaS? So PaaS is a software developer. PaaS is basically software developers use. It provides you cloud platforms and runtime environments, as I said, for developing, testing, and uploading your programs, and then for running it, testing it. All you do there, that's it. It's software developer basically use this PaaS, right? Again, we have some of the companies there like Amazon Web Services, Google App Engine is nothing but the Google Cloud there, and Microsoft Azure there, right? We have some of them. Again, we have now SaaS. What is SaaS? SaaS are the cloud providers, host, and the managers, the software application on a pay-as-you-go pricing models. And here we actually in the SaaS, as I said, right, that you don't have to manage everything. Everything is being managed by the server or the company or the provider. Actually, you don't have to manage anything. They make everything and you pay for that all, right? When you work on this Google Drive, Gmail, or this basically Microsoft Office, what do? Basically you go and create your things and you share your thing. That's it. You don't need to maintain everything there. Fine, everything is being maintained by the cloud providers. Very easy. Okay, moving on. So difference between IaaS, PaaS and SaaS. What is on-premise? You don't have any applications, you don't have any data, runtime, middleware, anything. There is no such very good, you can say, as it's managed, totally managed by you. You can see it's managed by vendors, and vendors is nothing but the providers actually. So it is totally managed by you with the applications, data, runtime, middleware, operating systems, virtualization, servers, storage, networking. You go and buy the storage and networking, and you go and pay, or you can go and manage for it there. Fine. So moving ahead. In IaaS, what its application, it's managed by you, data is managed by you, runtime, middleware, operating system is managed by you. But what is being managed by the vendors there? Virtualization, servers, storage, and networking is being managed by the vendors there. It's also a very good compared to the on-premise. Moving with the PaaS, what here is, you have to do a very small amount of work from your side. That is, you have to just manage your applications and your data. That's it, just that. And everything is being managed by the server, or you can say as a provider, as runtime, middleware, operating system, everything is managed by the server. As comparatively to all this, when we go with the service providers, we see that we don't have to manage anything, everything is being managed by the provider, and for that is what you pay actually, right? You go and you buy for the office, you need to pay for the 6,000, 7,000, but that is only for a, that is not for a limited time, that is only for a limited machines, like virtual machines when I was talking about, that is only for a limited type of machines there. And for Google Drive, as I said, you saw the picture there, right? Google Drive, it's a SaaS product. You can give public settings, you can give private settings. However, you don't have to manage anything. Everything Google Drive will manage, right? So let's see the difference between the IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS. Now, let's say that you have a crush on cake and you are planning to bake one yourself, and now let's look at the options you can make for the ingredients. You want to make a cake actually, right? For this, so you have options there. What are the options when you go to create a cake? You get all the ingredients yourself, like the flour, like what the flour, butter, eggs, cake pan, oven, electricity. These are you need actually to make a cake. That's very simple ingredients, right? So this is basically an on-premise level. You consider it as an on-premise when you make it at home, right? So you have all these things. Now when I consider this and I move to IaaS now, right? The second thing is, you go and you say that I will go and I will buy a cake and then I will modify it actually. I will buy a cake and I will modify it. See, in on-premise, everything is being managed by you. You are creating your own, you are setting up your own the dining table, and you are bringing water, electricity is well managed by you, oven, cake pan, flour, everything there, right? In buy and this, you don't have to manage for the electricity, dining table, I think, sorry, you have to manage for the dining table, water, electricity. You don't have to manage for the butter, sugar, flour, eggs. This is managed by the vendors. You just have to take the cake pan. You need to modify. That is, you need to heat it or whatever you want. That's. Moving ahead for the cake delivery. If you go with the cake delivery, now what you need to actually do is you just need to manage the water and the dining table there. That's all. Now everything, if you want that someone comes and deliver a cake for you, then everything he has to do, what do you have to do? Nothing but you have to set up a dining table and a water. That's it. Everything will be managed by the vendor actually. Now moving ahead, when we go to the SaaS, right, we actually ordered someone and we said that if we go to a restaurant and simply we say to bring a cake. Now what you have to do there? Just go sit and eat. Anything else guys there? No. Everything is managed by the provider. That is your restaurant or whatever restaurant you have there. You go and say bring a cake there, right? You don't have to do anything there. You don't have to set your own dining table for you. You don't have to bring your water for yourself, electricity, oven, and everything will be just managed by the vendor. So guys, are you clear with what is IaaS, provider service, and service as PaaS, SaaS, on-premise? Can you differentiate between them now? Anyone? Any problems? You can see no. Yes sir. Okay. Can we take GitHub as an example for PaaS? Yeah, obviously you can take. Okay, Jish Harani MP. Yes sir. Fine. Anyone more having problem in differentiating as, pas, as? I think no one. If anyone have, yes sir. Who is this? Jish Harani MP. Okay, you are having problem. Where is this? Subhajit, no problem. Okay. Right. It's moving ahead. So now we see the cloud providers. So AWS. What is actually AWS? Right? What is AWS? You have all have been heard the term AWS when you are interested in the cloud computing. You would have heard that. So AWS is nothing but the Amazon Web Services. It is a cloud computing service provided by Amazon. It provides a mix of infrastructure as a service, IaaS platform as a service path, or package software as a service called SaaS. Offering Microsoft Azure, formerly known as Windows Azure, is a cloud computing service by Microsoft, and it's a sort of specializes in using cloud for building applications. Microsoft actually manages the games and all whatever it provides as a software as a service platform and service infrastructure as a service for support of lot of different programming languages, tools and frameworks, including the third-party softwares and so on, like how Oz is. Same with the Microsoft Azure does, and then for we have IBM Cloud do the same tasks. What's different is of their service actually they give. VMware virtual machine, we have Google Cloud Platform and DigitalOcean. Now DigitalOcean is basically a computing platform of New Zealand actually, and it was it was the world's first. I think it was the first largest. Yes, it was the first largest headquarter. Its headquarter is in basically New York City, and it in data centers. Once it has been the what it has been the third largest hosting company. Yes, it was having the third largest hosting company in the 2018 actually, becoming the facing for the you can say as facing computers. Yeah. So let's talk about the Amazon Web Services, how it works on. So Oz is a cloud computing service provided by the Amazon, and these services are accessible over the internet, right? And because Oz provides infrastructure as a service, its flagship offering, we can create a deploy and any type of application in the cloud on the top of the Amazon providers, right? And you know, the best part here is subscriptions as pay as you go, as I'm talking about from the last few minutes, right? You typed, okay, you use less and pay less. Again, you go and you use more for whatever the time you are using, and you pay more there. Fine, that's it. So let's talk about the life cycle of the cloud computing solution. So here you can see where Amazon is a cloud service from Amazon, and you can get the services to create your models there. And subscription model, subscription, that is the pricing is very simple as compared to. Fine. Let's go ahead. So life cycle of a cloud computing solution. This is important something. How a cloud computing actually works on. So understanding the requirement, I can say that first you go and see the first you want actually to define the purpose, right? So you need to define a purpose. You need to understand the requirements of your business and determine what type of applications to run on cloud. That is, what type of service you need, what type of cloud you need. That is public, private, hybrid. What type of service you need. That is as, PaaS, SaaS, and so on. Right? You go there. Then you go and define your hardware. We will discuss Amazon. Just in a few minutes, we'll go to Oz and we'll discuss that what is EC2, what is Lambda, and so on. Right? So you need to define the hardware, which hardware you are very much essential to use. You choose a compute service that will provide the right support, where you will resize the compute capacity and so on. Then you go with the storage, define the storage, which storage you want there, right? Where you want can back up and archive your data over the internet. Then you go and define the network, like what network you are having, VPC route, and these will be discussing in Oz. We will get to one We'll be discussing every individual there. So you'll see define a network that securely delivers data, videos, applications with very low latency and high transfer speed, and so on. Then we go and define the security. After the network comes as a security, you go and set up your security service there, which enables for your authentication or limiting access to the certain set of users on the OS resources, right? We have there, you can see IAM, KMS, Cognito, and very easy so on. Moving on. Okay. So now we go and define management and process the tools. Now what is management basically? Now since you have defined everything, now you have a complete control on your cloud environment, and by defining management tools which monitor all resources and computer, you actually define that what are the tools which will be managing your particular sections there. This is something of the management and process tools. This is just like as similar as you are hiring people for their respective tasks. That's all. Okay, so at last you go for the testing process. That is your, if your cloud is working well, whatever you want is you working well or not. That's it. And finally you go with the analytics there. That's all. This is all about the cloud computing you deal with actually. Let me go and bring a OZ one. Guys, can you see the OZ PPT here? Is it visible? Or I have to share something there else. No, actually a mobile and web app development pro. Okay, some web problems. Let me see the chats. Firebase is an API problem. Okay, someone was saying to this. Okay. So the PPT is visible or not? No, I can see no from everyone. Okay. Hold on for a second. Some problems. Hold on. Go and share it completely. Class is there tomorrow. Yes, obviously class is there tomorrow. Okay, let me share it. Guys, now it is visible or not?
Visible, sir.
Yes, visible. Fine. Okay. Okay. So we're dealing with the introduction to the Amazon Web Services, right? So first, let's try to understand why we are learning OS and why is there a sudden need to know about the cloud technologies. Back in 2006-2007, companies were using their own private servers to create services like for storage, computing, etc. But now the internet speed becoming better, companies big or small have started understanding the powers of the cloud, and therefore they are shifting their data to the cloud for improved performance. So for that, they can focus on the core consistency. Once again, okay, yeah, okay. For example, Netflix is a popular video streaming service, all you know, right? Which is the whole world uses today. Back in 2008, Netflix suffered a major database corruption, right? I think so. And for 3 days, operations were halted. The problem was scaling, that is, when they realized the need of a highly reliable, horizontally scalable, and distributed systems in the cloud. It came in Amazon Web Services, and since their growth has been off the charts, they actually manage their services in the AWS. Now, Guarantor says by 2020, a corporate no cloud policy will be rare as no internet policy, right? So, since every company has started to adopt the cloud services in one way or the other, and Oz becoming a major player in the cloud services industry, it makes sense to learn what Oz Cloud Services is actually. So let me summarize it. Why we use Oz, because its server capacity is 6 times greater than the all the servers we have, right? And it shares a 69% of the share market, and it's a very in a very similar or very cheap price there, right? So what is Oz basically? So Amazon Web Services, that is Oz, is a subsidiary which offers cloud computing services at very affordable rates, therefore making it customers based strong from small scale companies like Pinterest, which has just 5 employees. Like when Pinterest was started, it was having only 5 employees there, to a big enterprise like D-Link. Everyone has, I think, most of you are having D-Link in your home, right? Okay. So what is it basically then cloud computing? We have to summarize what is the cloud computing. Domains of AWS: compute, migration, security, storage. What it provides actually, it's provide compute with nothing but the hardware, migrations, security, storage, networking, messaging, database, management tools, analytics, and so on there. It gives a lot of service there. We'll deal with what are the services. First, before that, let me summarize it once again. Let me summarize it with, I think it has gone down there. Okay, fine. So, so basically we have read around it. What is cloud computing? It's the use of the remote servers over the internet to store and manage and process data rather than storing it on a local computer or a PC. Is this so? That's all, right? So basically we have also read that we have 3 categories in cloud computing. Major categories, which are SaaS, software as a service, which allows companies to use software without having to purchase them, and which also reduces the expenditure of the company drastically. Since they are already installed on the cloud server, they can be quickly deployed and therefore saves time. We have seen the second criteria as platform as a service, which allows developer to build applications, collaborate on projects without having too much purchase or main infrastructures there, right? So, and the third option we have infrastructure as a service, right? So it allows companies to actually rent servers. That is, we saw in the like hybrid clouding actually. So it allows companies to rent servers or storage or space from a cloud provider. That's it. This is very begin. That's all it works on. SaaS, PaaS, and this all, right? So now you are clear with all these hybrid cloud, private cloud, consumers, and let me say a good example of what are the upfront costs. So suppose there is a research company, so they would have some published data and also data which would still be in research phase. Now anything which is still in research should be kept confidential, right? They actually don't need to share their confidential data, right? So they would have some research projects which will be kept confidential. Though your cloud provider may have state of art security features, but then it is still open to public. Therefore, prone can attack, or you can say it as a cyber attack. So to address this risk, you keep the data still being worked on in your company server, whose access is controlled by the company, and your published data on the public platform. That was someone, Muskan, I think, asked that how we can share our public data and in a hybrid cloud. This is what we do actually, right? Okay, move on. So let's go and see the domains we have seen. Let's see the services what Azure gives. So before that, I will also be dealing with the, when we talk of OS, it's more of an IaaS moving along, basically. Infrastructure as a service there. More for the infrastructure as compared to PaaS and SaaS, it's more for the infrastructure moving on. Let's take a deep dive into the OS, right? Let's go. So global cloud computing forecast and market predictions. Here are a few interesting insights provided by the industry knowledge leaders, right? So worldwide spending on public cloud services will grow at a 19.4% compound annual CAGR. You will be reading these facts in your daily news right there. Let's go with the compute services. So it is a process data used to process data on the cloud by using making use of the powerful processors and multiple instances at a time. What are instances? We'll see what are instances there. Fine, let's move on. Okay, so first is your EC2, which is nothing but Elastic Compute Cloud. So Amazon Elastic Compute Cloud is a web service from Amazon that provides resizable compute services in the cloud. They are resizable because you can quickly scale up or scale down the number of server instances you are using if other computer. Now I have said what are instances. So an instance is a virtual server for running application on the Amazon. Like virtual machine is a virtual server. It is a virtual server. It can be understood as a tiny part of a largest computer, or a tiny part which has old hard drive, network connection, operating systems, and so on, right? So it's actually all virtual. It's nothing original. It's virtual, man. Like, okay, like a mirage. You can have multiple tiny computers on a single physical machine, and all the tiny machines called as instances. Like maybe might of you someone have seen the movie Doctor Strange. So consider this is that there was having a mirage, right? A virtual environment, right? How many of you have saw? Anyone who have seen Doctor Strange? Okay, no one. Fine. Let's move ahead. So OS compute services, we have the next service. This was EC2, and we have next service. Now my next service is as Lambda. Let me see. Someone who's giving replies. Oz. Okay, this replies for Oz or Doctor Strange. Shivnatha Ampati. Yes. Subhajit and Muskan. Yes. Okay, you have seen Doctor Strange, right? So you might be knowing that what is virtual actually. Hey, there were 3 person creating a virtual environment over there and then fighting on so that the original one could not be affected. So that is basically the virtual one. So as compute services, we have Lambda. So basically Amazon explained it's as a serverless compute service. Why? Meaning the developers don't have to worry about which OS resource to launch. Now how will they manage them? Just they put the code on the Lambda and it runs. It's that simple. It helps you to focus on core competency and app building all the code. Now it basically executes your backend code. When I summarize this OS, I get to see that basically the Lambda is used to execute backend code without worrying about the underlying architecture. You just upload the code and it runs. That's it. And right, So is there anything more to discuss for the Lambda? I think, yeah, no, that's not. Let's move on. So compute services, we have the third criteria. See guys, we are dealing only with the compute service now. We'll go after the compute, we'll go to the new service. So in compute services, the third criteria is your elastic beanstalk. Now what is this beanstalk actually? So elastic beanstalk, also known as AEB, that is your EB, you can say EB. You go and search for the EB in Google, you will see the elastic beanstalk there. So it's quickly deploy and manage applications in OS without worrying about the underlying infrastructure. That is how it works. Right? It's easy to use service for deploying, like web services deployed with the Java, PHP, Python, Node.js, Ruby. These are the some popular languages on work on, and in familiar services such as Apache, Passenger, Nginx, and IaaS. You can simply upload your code and Elastic Beanstalk automatically handles the deployment from capacity, provisioning, load balancing, auto scaling to application health monitoring, and at the same time you retain full control over the OS resources, powering your application and can access the underlying resources at the time. Now for seeing all these practicals, we will be dealing in the fourth day with the Azure, or soon after the completion of the Amazon. We will be tomorrow first we will be doing the practical of the Amazon web service, and then in the remaining 1 hour we will be dealing with the Microsoft Azure, right? So that on the third day we can deal with the Microsoft Azure practicals, and we'll then discuss with some of the projects, and then we'll be going with the some major topics which we have to discuss for the IBM section, right? And on the fifth day we'll be giving the examinations there, right? So move on. Now AWS compute service, we have the next criteria as elastic load balancing. Now this is ELB. We have read AB and now it is ELB. So elastic load balancing automatically manages the workload on your instances and distributes them to other instances in case of a instance failure, right? It automatically distributes the incoming application traffic across the multiple targets, right? Consider that example of your huge traffic overnight on a particular product. So that time your server may crash or your server may go down, right, at that period. So it distributes the load balancing automatically distributes the incoming traffic. Now if you have taken 3 servers, or you have taken a product, or you are you can OS is providing your service there, fine. So if your server is packed or if your storage has been filled, a high traffic has come on your website, so OS will basically gives you a new server automatically without asking from you. It automatically gives you a new server for there, so that your traffic can be managed easily. It can handle varying load. It's very easy to load the traffic on the AWS, right? Elastic load balance offers 3 different type of load balances. All features the high availability, automatic scaling, robust security. This all you can go just and get a Google and you will see different applications for it. Let's go with the OS compute service, that is auto scaling. Now auto scaling monitors your application and automatically adjust capacity to maintain steady predictable performance at the lowest possible cost, right? Using AWS auto scaling, it's easy to set up application scaling for multiple resources across the multiple servers in minutes. The service provides a simple powerful user interface that lets you build scaling plans for resources including Amazon EC2, the first criteria we have read, instances, and spot fleets. Amazon ECS will discuss further. Amazon DynamoDB will discuss further, and so on, Aura and so on. Let's move ahead. So guys, you will be getting this PPT. Have a look over it and just read it before coming tomorrow. Now we have seen the first service of OS, that was compute service. Let's go with the second service, that is storage service now. Now what the storage and content delivery has. Now the storage and content delivery have the first service as S3, which is Amazon Simple Storage Service. Alright guys, it is very simple storage service there. It is named as so. So what is actually now? Let me say that Oz, or you can say the storage is increasing every day, right? Everyone needs that he or she might have a very good storage there, or for him or her, which never ends up, right? Everyone wants so. Okay, so the need of storage is increasing every day. So building and maintaining your own repository is therefore becoming a tedious and tiresome job. Actually become knowing the amount of capacity you may need, because you actually don't know that what amount of capacity you will be needing in your future, right? So it becomes a tedious and tiresome job, too difficult to predict. You may either overutilize it, or maybe you have taken like the example of the 32 GB mobile phone and you are using only 5 GB. That's wastage of money right there, keeping all these hassles, right? So Amazon came with an internet storage service called Oz A3. So what is Oz A3? Oz Simple Storage Service is a storage for the internet. It's designed for large capacity, low cost storage provision across multiple geographical regions. Amazon S3 provides developers and IT teams with the secure, durable, and highly scalable object storages. Right? S3, which is a simple storage service, it is named for 3S. It has been given S3. This S3 is secure because Oz provides encryption to the data. I think it's a net. No, okay, fine. So encryption to the data that you store. It happens in two ways. Now encryption is basically based on the two criteria, which is client side encryption and server side encryption. Now the encryption to the data is summarized in client side and server side, CSE and SSE. And the second type is multiple copies are maintained to enable regeneration of data in case of data corruption. When you go with the third, you will be dealing with the versioning, which wherein can edit is archived for a potential retrieval. Now S3 is secure. We have seen that why it is secure. It's having a very good encryption method. Multiple copies it has been created. And why it is durable? Because it regularly verifies the integrity of data stored, right? Whatever you have stored, it regularly verifies the integrity of the data. It detects actually if there is any corruption in your data, and if there comes, that it immediately repaired with the help of a replicated data. Even while storing and retrieving data, it checks incoming network traffic for a corrupted package, like any corrupted network is coming or not. That's so on. And it's highly scalable also. Why? Since it automatically scales your storage accordingly to your requirement, and you only pay for the storage you use. So again, it's come with a highly scalable. So that is what. The next question to our mind comes in: what kind and how much data can one store in AWS S3? So you can store virtually any kind of data in any format in S3, and when we talk about the capacities, the volume and the number of objects what we can store is unlimited actually. An object is a what is, you will be wondering what is object. So object is a one fundamental entity in S3. It consists of data, keys and metadata, right? When we talk about data, data is again of the two types. It can be accessed frequently and it can accessed not that frequently. Some data are which can be accessed frequently and some data are which is accessed not that frequently, right? So therefore Amazon came up with the three storage classes to provide its customers the best experience at the affordable costs. So there we have three classes for S3, right? So guys, you can make a note over there, because in examinations, in IBM exam, the questions will be there that what is this, what is this, what is this. So are you making notes? Because everything PPT will not give you everything. I will be discussing some notes to there. Okay, so we have S3 classes there. Okay, so Amazon S3 standard for frequent data access. So first criteria for the S3 is Amazon S3 standard for frequent data access. So this is a suitable for performance sensitive use case where the latency should be kept low. Example in hospitals, frequently access data in admitted patients, well, it should be retrieved very quickly. So to retrieve the informations very quickly, you can use Amazon S3 for frequent data access. For infrequent data access, we have a suitable use case for example. Let me take in the same hospital, people who has been discharged, their records and data will not be needed on a daily basis, right? When we need to because the people who have been discharged, I don't need to get the frequent data of those who have been discharged, or those records. I don't need that records on daily basis, but I need the records of those people who are actually admitted now in the hospitals. I need their records of the daily basis. Why will I be needing the records of the daily basis who has been discharged from the hospitals? But if they return with any complication, their discharge summary should be retrieved quickly. That is infrequent data access. We have the second. Third criteria is Amazon Glacier. We will be discussing what is Glacier. So let's move on to the third one. Yes. Now we have CloudFront with us. Now what is CloudFront now? Right? What is CloudFront? Something. So CloudFront is a fast content delivery network, CDN. This is service that securely delivers data, videos, applications, APIs to customers globally with very low latency and with a higher speed with all the developer friendly environment. Now CF, which is CloudFront, is integrated with OS, both physical locations that are directly connected to the OS global infrastructures as well as the OS service. CloudFront work seamlessly with services including OS Shield for DDoS mitigations, Amazon S3, Elastic Load Balancing, or Amazon EC2 as origins for their applications, and Lambda Edge for the run the custom codes there. It's a very big theory. Let's move on. So we have EBS there, which is Elastic Book Storage, right? We have various type. Amazon has various type of categorizations. Every single data has been categorized in very multiple number of steps, you can say. So EBS is an easy to use high performance block storage service designed for use with the Amazon Elastic Compute, which is we have read in the first criteria EC2, and it's go for the both throughout and transaction intensive workloads at any scale. A broad range of workloads such as relational and non-relational databases, enterprise applications and containerized applications, big data analytics engines, and so on there, right? These are basically the services which Amazon provides, and in those services we actually have discussed only one type of service till now, that is AWS Compute Service. We are discussing the second type now, that is Amazon Storage Service, and these are the subdomains of that services. So I said that I will be talking about the glaciers. What is glacier there? So suitable for the use cases, you can say. Uh, Given in the PPT, it's given that S3 Glacier Deep Archive are secure, durable, and extremely, because it's an S3, it's again secure, durable, and extremely low cost Amazon S3 cloud storage classes. These are designed basically to deliver 99.9% durabilities and provide comprehensively security and compliance capabilities that can help you store data at about like $1 per terabyte. See, you can see that how cheap it is, right? It has suitable for use cases where the data is to be archived at a high performance as is not required. It has a lower cost than the other two services we have seen, that is the Amazon S3 infrequent data access or the frequent data access. It has a very high performance and a lower cost. So in the hospital, patients test reports, prescriptions, MRI, X-ray, scan, again these are older, right? This becomes older than a year will not be needed in daily run, and even if it required, low latency is not needed. We don't require the MRI, X-ray, and scan of any right there. So this is something are the glaciers. And how is data organized in S3? So data is actually in S3, it's organized in the form of buckets. A bucket is a logical unit of storage in S3, which is a bucket contains objects which contains the data and metadata. before adding any, like you shop online, right? You have a bucket, you have a cart actually there, you go and shop your contents there, right? Same with the clouds. Before adding any data in the S3, the user has to create a bucket which will be used for store objects, right? So where is your data stored geographically? Yes, you can self choose actually wherever you or which region your data should be stored. Making a decision for the region is important, and therefore it will be planned well. Now there are 4 parameters on which you choose your region: pricing, customer location, latency, and service availability. So let's understand it. Suppose there is a company which has to launch these storage instances to host a website for the customers in the US and India. To provide the best experience, the company has to choose a region which best fits its requirement. Now, let's suppose I take region as Mumbai or in Virginia. Instance type, I have taken Amazon EC2, 16 CPU, 64 GB RAM, so on. Pricing, let's suppose for 1 year I have took 0.9 per hour or 0.6 hourly for $691 monthly. That's latency is nothing but your low latency, high latency. That's all. You take the latency as low, high there. So it's all how it work on. Fine. Then we have a cross region replications, which two regions interchange their data transfer. That is Amazon CloudFront. Your data is actually being traditional transferred from Amazon CloudFront to Amazon S3. So have we discussed Amazon CloudFront? Yes, this Amazon CloudFront data has been interchanged with Amazon S3. Transfer acceleration is called as transfer acceleration. It enables fast and easy secure transfers over long distances by exploiting Amazon's CloudFront edge technology. So basically, as we saw that CloudFront was a caching service by Oz, right, in which the data from client side gets transferred to the nearest edge locations, and from there the data is routed to your Oz S3 bucket over an optimized network path. That's how you move there. Let's go ahead. Now moving with the snowballs. So snowball is a way of interesting or transferring your data physically, right? It's a process what we do actually in our daily life as compared to in the Amazon. This Amazon sends an equipment to your own premises, your premises actually, on which you can load the data. It has a Kindle attached to it, which has the shipping address, and when it is shipped from Amazon, when the data is being transferred completely, Kindle changes the shipping address back to the Oz headquarters where the snowball has been sent. Snowball is basically ideal for customers who have large batches of data move. The average turnaround time for the snowball is 5 to 7 days when it comes and delivers actually. The time, in the same time, transfer acceleration can transfer up to 75 terabytes of data on a dedicated 1 Gbps line. Now 1 Gbps is very high, right? So depending on your use case, a customer can decide at what price he wants and what are the circumstances he will be working on, what is basically the service he needs. So these actually provides you the options. These are the service, and in these service you have these options. Amazon gives you this service and also gives you this option that yes, you go with this service, and when you are going with this service, you in this service you are having these options. So what option you are going to choose? So before choosing the options, you actually need to learn that what all these options do, what all these options stand for, right? So the next criteria is storage gateway. It's a hybrid cloud storage that gives you on-premise access to virtually unlimited cloud storage. So customers use storage gateway to simplify storage management and reduce cost for key hybrid cloud storage use cases. That's all. So we have discussed two storage types, that was a storage based and one was service of compute service. Now let's back move to, as you can see, the back. Okay, we have saw the compute and we have saw the storage. Let's move to the database now. So storage we have done. So in database we have Amazon database, AURORA, basically calls this Aura, right? So it's is a kind of MySQL or a PostgreSQL compatible relational database built for the cloud that combines the performance and the availability of traditional enterprise databases. What is exactly a database? A database is exactly what where you store the data. That's all. Storage is also, and you create manually. You create a data of many, you can say, as users there, and you store on some factors, implementing those datas. That's it. So it's up to 5 times faster than the standard of MySQL. We use MySQL database, and it's 3 times faster than PostgreSQL databases. That's all, right? So you can, while building any hosting, you can take these options. Okay, this option is okay, this options works as this, so I can take this as, okay, fine, let's take this. So these are the options actually. About, I'm again telling, these are the options which you get under a typical kind of servers or a service, what a service Amazon provides you, right? So you need to understand what this what these options does. You can't, because you, when you choose for any server, like you choose for that, I want to go with the uh, database, right? I want to go with the database service. So it will ask you that which option you will like to choose in the database, because database is having itself in 3 to 4 options. Which option would you will be liking to choose? That is simple right there. Let's move. We have RDS, which is Relational Database Service. It makes actually easy to set up and operate and scale a relational database in the cloud. It provides cost efficient and resizable capacity while automating time consuming administration tasks. It's just like hardware provisioning, database setups, patching, backups, so on, right? It's available on several database instance types, optimized for memory, performance, input, output, and provides you a very 6 familiar database engines to choose you from: Amazon, Aura, PostgreSQL, MySQL, MariaDB, Oracle database. I think you would have heard the name of Oracle, SQL, MySQL, and right there. Right. So RDS has been completed. Let's move to the DynamoDB. What is DynamoDB? It's a key value and a document database. For doc, every document, you have a key there that delivers a single digit millisecond performance at any scale. For a fully managed and multi-region, multi-master, everything you can say is suitable database with a built-in security. It has, as I say, that it has a built-in security. You don't go to apply a security to a document manually. It automatically secured it. It secures it actually. So DynamoDB can handle more than 10 trillion requests per day, right? If any website is coming, any website website is having a request of 10 times request or 20 time request, more than frequently, any good website gets a very high traffic. If we consider that a website is having a very high traffic, let's suppose for when you are going for shopping actually, so million of user shops on Amazon, on Flipkart, or on any shopping website, billion of users comes and shops on there. So think of that website is what traffic it would be getting. So for that, millions of billions of requests comes on a single day of our website. So we can take this DynamoDB where 10 trillion requests can be accepted per day, right? And support speaks for more than 20 million requests per second. So you can see how speed and how large it is. So many of the world fastest growing business such as LYFT, Airbnb, and Rediff, as well as enterprise such as Samsung, Toyota, Capital One, these are having DynamoDB with them. Many use, Netflix too use. Moving on. Then we have a criteria called as elastic cache. Now it allows you to seamlessly set up run and scale popular open source compatible in memory data stores in the cloud. Build data intensively apps on boost of the performance. Now what actually all these do when we will be making an Oz platform, we'll make an account there and then we'll perform how Oz works. Then we'll see that what are these options and how these works actually, right? So what your job is for today, I'll send this PPT in your drive. Your job is to go through it, and for more than go through it, you can go on the Google and can search a bit over the Google there. What are the services? What more are there in the services? Moving ahead. Now we have database services, Redshift, right, simply called as RS. So ARS or Amazon Redshift is fully petabyte scale data warehouse service in the cloud. Amazon Redshift is a data warehouse product which forms part of the larger cloud computing platform, that is AWS. The name means to shift from Oracle, Red being allusion to Oracle, which is corporate color in red, and it's being referred to as big red. In the console we will be seeing, when I am talking about console, you just need to go in the Google Chrome, and we'll dealing with tomorrow with the AWS, Amazon Web Services. We'll just go and create your account here. Just go and create an AWS account, and we'll discuss from this tomorrow. We go my PPT where it is, someone has asked something, I think lambda and EB difference. Okay, we'll just say where has gone on PPT. Alright, so Redshift, fine. So okay, one second, someone asked some difference. Who? Hirat Khatri, what is the difference between a lambda and EB? Okay, see Hirat, lambda is simpler and less expensive, while elastic beanstalk, which is EB, is it lets you run full applications and give you control. And as compared with lambda, it's very simple and less expensive. On the pricing criteria, you can classify that they both are very great choices, but very less expensive. EBS actually have an excess of PAS, which is pass, and lambda is also excess of pass, but its lambda is serverless actually, and pass needs some servers there. Fine. So that's another topic of criteria, the difference. EV needs a service, whereas lambda is serviceless, serverless, right? And lambda is very much cheap as compared to the, what do you say again, EB. So is this clear, Hirat Khatri? All right, he's writing nothing anymore. Yes, visible, clear, sir. Thank you. Let's move on. Where it has gone? Yes. So Amazon Redshift is fully managed by petabyte scale data warehouse service in the cloud. Amazon Redshift is a kind of data warehouse product which forms part of the cloud browsers, and I have discussed this. Let's move on. Now we have networking services. Now what are these networking services? We have discussed three services now. Then let's go with the networking. In networking, we have only three services. That's 1, 2, and 3. Yes. So in network, first you have VPC, that is virtual private cloud Amazon. It lets you a provision of a logically isolated section of Oz cloud where you can launch Oz resources in a virtual network that you define. You have complete control over the virtual networking environment, including section of your own IP address range, creation of the subnets, configuration of your route tables, and so on. You just go today and just take all these things read in your mind and have a look over the Google, what is this, how it works, create. And tomorrow we'll just start by creating an Oz account and we'll deal with. And I will give you a project of Oz tomorrow. You will be working on for that. So Let's move. So the next criteria of networking service is direct connect. Now OS Direct Connect is a cloud service solution that makes it easy to establish dedicated network connection from your premises to OS. Using OS Direct Connect, you can establish private connectivity between OS and data center, office, or a co-collations environments, and in many cases you can reduce your network cost also. Increase bandwidth. What is bandwidth actually? You are using, if you use Wi-Fi in your phone or hotspots in your phone, you can see it's 2.4 gigahertz and 5.05 gigahertz, 10 gigahertz, and so on. That is actually bandwidth. Let's move ahead and moving to the third criteria, which is Route 53. It's a highly available and scalable cloud domain name system, which is DNS web service. It gives you DNS service. It is designed to give developers and business an extremely reliable and cost. It actually gives the www dot service, right? So whatever you buy like www, if you buy from Amazon, it gives you a service of networking service for Route 53. So you need to understand which service you are using and what actually are the factors. Aren't you seeing the factors? That's all. We have then management servers as services. So for management, we have CloudWatch, we have Cloud Information, we have CloudTrail, Command Line, OpsWorks, Trusted Advisors. That's all. So CloudWatch is a monitoring and observatory service built for DevOps, developer operating systems, engineers, developers, site reliability engineers, and IT managers. CloudWatch provides you with the data and actionable insights to monitor your applications, respond to system-wide changes, optimize resources utilization, and get unified view for operational health. CloudWatch collects, monitors, and operational data in the form of logs, metrics, and events, right? And providing you the unified view of the OS resources, applications, and services that run on OS and premises services. Like if you are from a coding background, how many you are from a coding background? Anyone who has been learning the programming languages or have learned anything there? Anyone from there programming? Let me guess with the names. I can guess that, okay, learned C. Subhajit Swan. Okay, I was about to take your name actually. I can see Sanika. It's Sanika or what? Okay, Sanika, you are from a coding background. Now learning Python. Okay, very nice. Yes, okay, fine. I made a correct guess. Madhavan. I think from, okay, everyone is from a coding background. That's that good. So yes, one. Okay, see, I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 are from a coding background. Jisharani MP is not from a coding background. All right, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So from 9 we can see 8 results or 7. I think 7. Yes, 7 results where 6 are from a coding background. That's very good, guys. C and Python. Shivan. What is his name? Shivan Vitha. Okay. Shivan Vitha Ambati. Okay, you have read C as well as Python. Very good. And from Python, we have 3 programmers here, right? We have Jyothi. Okay, here comes a new programmer, Hitrath. Okay, your name is Hitrath. Hitarth. Okay, Hitarth. I can see actually. What is your name? It's Hitarth Hatri. Well, okay. So you are Hitarth, Shirvan Vitha, okay, Jyothi, and who was much more? Python. Okay, right. So actually, I am a very interested in Python, right? Because I am a Python developer actually. So these are guys learning Python. Very good. So let's focus on the cloud today. Discuss about the Python later. So cloud watch is monitoring. We have seen all these things. Let's move on. Cloud formation. So I was asking just because if you are from a coding background or something from a programming language background, you will be learning it or you will be you will be having a very boring session, right? I can guess you will be having a very boring session because everything is going on theories and theories. And actually, I say that cloud computing is majorly as compared when you see for the coding parts, right? When you go with the when I take sessions for Python and R and all these, there is no such of that these theories. Everything just go in the practical sessions, right? There is no sub theory part. So when it comes with the cloud computing, it's all about the theories. And in the last we go with the practical sessions. So for those what I can see the major of those are from the programming background. So for everyone I think it would be a very boring session. It's okay, guys. You need to learn something new, and theories are very important actually. So let's deal with that. So we have cloud formation, which provides a common language for you to model a provision and a third-party application resources in your cloud environment. So OZ allows you to use programming languages or a simple text file to model the provision in an automated and secure manner. All the resources needed for your applications across all regions and clouds or accounts. This gives you a single source of truth for your OZ and third-party resources there. That's moving on. And CloudTrail, I can think that today I can finish this off. So we will be dealing, and I think it will be get over. Yes, I think it's can be okay. So CloudTrail, and have I discussed this? No. Yes, I have discussed. I think so. Let me discuss again. So you would have been seeing that SDK and command line tools or services in the ad areas, right? It's a service that enables governance, compliance, or operational auditing, risk auditing for your OZ of account. Let once you go and once you create your OZ account, we'll see that what are these actually. We will be able to see there, and we'll work there fine. Now moving ahead with the command line. Command line is nothing but a unified tool to manage your OS service. Now whatever the OS service you have opted, you are going to command it, or you are going to manage or download or configure it through your command line. That's basically a tool out there. Like we are learning that, like you have been learning Python and R and so on, like languages, right? That is basically a that all are basically a tool where you work on. It provides you for the data analytics and so on. But we have various options in that. That's a very interesting topic actually. So I don't let me go there. I will get much deeper in those. So ops works, right? So it's a configuration management tool that helps configure and operate applications for all the size and shapes using Chef. Now it's a configuration management service, as I'm talking about. It's come and work as a chef and puppet. That's all. Let's just go and read the PPT. You can see here the links where you will be directly being access to the official site of Amazon, where you can also access the much of the regions and very much good knowledge from here. You can go and just read one by one what is general purpose, how it is used, and this. And trust me, your examination will be totally theory based, right? You will be asked around 50 questions or 60 questions, right? And it will be total theory based. So if you guys are not clear in the theories, where has been the PPT went? If you guys are not very well in the theories, instead if you are very well in the practical, if you are not well in the theories, you will not be able to score much there, right? And so focus on theories much in cloud computing. You need to focus on what are the options available in cloud computing, how you work on those options, and what option work for, what service work for, what are the options. So that is basically your examination is there. So it is not like if your because your courses I have designed for 5 days, because it's actually you need for 5 days. It's you need to go through all. You need to actually have these 5 days to remember actually all these, and then you will be giving your examination. Because otherwise the course has been finished in just 2 to 3 days. This course of examination one. You just come, mug up all these, and just go to examination, give examination, and just clear about that. Like, so examination, in your examination you will be getting 3 attempts, right? First attempt at but the 3 attempts is something like you will be getting once a day. Once a day is something like for every question you will be getting 2 chance to answer. Multiple choice questions will be there. For every questions you will be getting a 2 chance there to answer, right? And after you answer, okay, if it come false, you get a 1 chance that to give a correct answer. And if you answer correctly, it's something like around that game or KBC, right? They have option of um, double options, or what was that, I don't remember. That KBC you have option of double side, or what do they say, actually I don't remember. 50-50, yes, correct, that's 50-50, yeah. So here also you get a chance of 50-50, but only the multiple choice questions. When the questions come for the true and false, like in some questions you will be getting that is this statement true, is this service providing these options true or false. Now there you will be getting only one option, that is no 50-50, there is only one last question option, that is either correct or false, that's it. So one option, right? You have some review questions, you have to complete all those, and meanwhile after those you will be getting ahead to the final examination. The final examination will be consisting of 20 to 25 questions out there, and around 60 minutes. It's very easy there, like guys, but you need to remember the theories, otherwise you will not be able to solve those. So there you have options, and suppose if in any case, just don't try to get fail, but if any case if you fail in the first attempt in the final examination, right, so it gives you that okay, you have 2 chances. After 1 day you again start in the same time and you give your examination. In the second day again you get failed, don't worry, you have more 50, that is 50, you actually get 25, 25, 25 there, no 50s, 25 into 3 there, right? So in the third phase you go and just clear examination. If not so, then what is the minimum marks required? See, actually the review sections and the final examination have 50% of share, review examination have 50% of share. So you basically have to pass both the sections. So minimum passing marks is nothing like that, that's its grade, that you have to bring a good grade, a grade in 50% and a grade in final examination, or you can relate your minimum marks as around 65 to 70%, that's all. Like Microsoft examinations, it is also having 55 to 70%, it would be, I think so, 55 to 70% your percentage will be for the examinations. If you score below, you have 3 chances guys, you have 3 chances for the final examination. You go and clear your examination, and if on the first day doesn't clear, go and second day also not, the third day, and if your third day is also not clear, I'm giving you an option, don't be panic, go and create a new account there with a new name, a new credentials, everything, and then give the exam, get 3 more chances and work on so much, right? But at anyhow you just go and clear the examinations, that's a clear fundamental. Okay, let's move on. So cloud oops works we have discussed. Trusted advisor is a customized monitoring cloud monitoring tool that analyzes your OS environment and gives insights of the expense, performing improvement and security gaps. Whatever the security networking gaps has been created, it will fill up. That's all. Security services. We have IAM, which is identity and access management, which enables you to manage the access the all services resources securely. Using IAM, you can create and manage all users and groups and use permissions to allow and deny their access through OS resources. IAM is a feature of your OS account offering at no additional charges. You will be charged only for your use of the OS service, whatever the services. Again, in Amazon, any service when you opt for, you will be charged only for the services you are opting. That's all. Oz, and guys, when you create your Oz account, it will ask you for your account details, that is your credential IDs. So go and give the credential IDs. It's basically essential to give, because when you go and create an Oz account, right, it asks for your ID, because it's like in any condition, if you go and take the services which are not free, right? When you go and test it, and by default, you can say is by mistaken, suppose by mistaken, if you come for a service which is not free, the Amazon will give you a prompt that you are taking an paid service. Would you like to continue? So it will give you option that yes or no. So whenever you go and click on yes, it automatically deducts the amount from your account without asking you, because once you have given you. So when you try, please try to go and use free there, right? When we will discussing tomorrow, right? So please try to get the free uses, like don't think of that, okay sir hasn't discussed this one, what is this, let's explore. So when you will go to explore this site, you will not be seeing that what it is asking. You will just go and like whatever, what actually we humans do, we Indians actually do, right? When we are eager to do any particular task, or when we are eager to like install any application in our system or phone, what do we do is click on install, it's being installing, okay, whatever is asking, yes 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 yes, go and click everything yes, whatever is then don't see, just click on yes and move on, right? So don't go for the paid ones, right? We'll be seeing tomorrow. So where has it gone? Okay, so we have KMS, which says key management service. It's easy for you to create and manage cryptographic keys. Now again, this cryptographic keys is nothing but a encrypted key which cannot be easily decrypted. That's all. Application services, you have SES, that is simple email service, right? SMTP works on, because SMTP, or you can say as email service, is a business or cost effective service which actually different type of companies do. And like business or emails actually stores a lot of data. We see in our drive that we haven't stored any data from our emails, but emails do store a lot of size, a lot of spaces there. So there is an application for SES. There's an SQS, that is simple queue service. It is a messaging service, again already managed by the OS, totally managed actually, and it works on. So with the SNS is a notification service, which company, like when you got notification in your phone or SMS or emails, anything like that, or push notification talking about the HTTPS AMDAS process, you go and read this everything, right? So this is all about how your OS works. So we will be discussing tomorrow about the practicals of OS, as well as we will be dealing with the Microsoft Azure. All right, then will be next day we will be seeing the practicals of Azure, and we'll be seeing the some important functions and chapters of the IBM. Your examination questions, will practice the examinations few questions, and in the last day we'll be giving our examinations right there, right? So guys, any doubts today? Okay, someone was asking in the group for the videos of the session. You will be getting your videos actually every day. And I think you will be getting your videos in the end of the 5th day or the 4th day, I think so. Or maybe you will be getting your videos daily, right? Let me end the video actually.